If you don't want to use the grid method and you want to transform your frustratingly disproportionate drawings into realistic and suggested masterpieces, then this video is going to be a game changer. These are 17 practical tips that I personally use that will immediately improve your drawings. By the way, I'm Adam. I've been drawing for over 25 years and I help charcoal portrait artists come off the grid method, master proportions and implement suggestion in their work. Let's dive in. Okay, so number one, perfect imperfections. Because we work with portraits, we have this idea that if something is just slightly off, then it won't look like our subject anymore. Not true. We aren't threading the needle when we're drawing. Likeness isn't just down to precision. If you held my work side by side with the reference, you would see that sometimes maybe the face is a little bit too wide or the nose is a little bit too long. It doesn't matter. As long as we don't make it look like a caricature, it doesn't matter. Now, I'm not saying precision isn't important, but soul, character, and your voice within the portrait holds so much more weight to it than moving something by 2mm. Number two, consistency. Now, I know you've heard this probably a million times already, and you're probably going to hear it a million times again as well. But if you aren't putting in the work and you're not turning up, then your portraits aren't going to improve. Now, obviously, we don't want to make this feel like a chore and we don't want to suck the fun out of it. But at the same time, you still need to turn up and you still need to do the work. Number three, mindset. If you have a goal to sell your work, or you want to take on commissions, or you just want to improve for yourself, you have to identify as an artist. I'm amazed at how many people don't class themselves as an artist, even though they have all the intentions in wanting to be one. But because they haven't sold a piece of their work or they're not happy with what they're creating, they don't class themselves as one. If you don't class yourself as an artist, you're not going to do, believe, or act like one. But if you do call yourself an artist, you'll then start to implement what artists do. And we eat, live, breathe art. Number four, taking your own references. As soon as you start taking your own references, you immediately start to pivot and going in the right direction of creating 100% original work, which is one of the steps in developing your style and standing out from everybody else. And you don't need to be a professional photographer to do this. We all have smartphones now and they all have amazing cameras on them. I took this photo here at 5 p.m. when the sun was a bit lower, so it had softer light to it. We did the whole shoot in about 30 minutes. When I took this photo, I didn't know much about lighting. I just knew that soft light is good and the sun is free to use. Now with more experience, I also know that hard light is good. It just gives it a different effect for your portrait. Number five, progression, not perfection. This is something I live by and I constantly tell my students. The ideal scenario is to create perfect portraits immediately straight from the start, but that's not going to happen. Now there's two lenses that you should look at this with. The first lens is being in the process of the drawing that you're working on. Is it in a better position than it was 30 minutes ago? Throughout the entire process, you want to progress with it at each stage. You don't want it to be perfect at each stage. You only want it to be perfect at the very end. Now, the second lens that you want to look at it with is viewing your work at 6 and 12 months apart. Not day to day or week to week. The likelihood is at the very beginning, you'll learn a huge amount because you're taking on all of this new knowledge and experience, and you'll hit all these milestones and you'll progress really quickly. And then all of a sudden you'll plateau and your progression becomes a lot slower. Now that doesn't mean you don't know what you're doing. It just means that those experience points become further and further away because you're gaining more experience each time. And then at that point, it becomes so easy to fall back into bad habits or just thinking what you did at the beginning was just luck, which it wasn't. You've just reverted back to old ways because you're not seeing that steep progression that you had at the beginning. Number six, consistency. If you don't do the work, you're not going to improve. Number seven, detail paralysis. The biggest killer in any portrait is fixating on the details way too early. Because portraits are so hard, you want some kind of confirmation at the beginning that you're doing something right. So instead of building a proper foundation where you can go through the stages where you're able to put those details in at the end, you dive in right at the beginning because you need that confirmation. But that's not going to help you. I have a whole video on this in approaching it in a more structured way that will help you create a more successful drawing. I'll leave a link in the description. Number 8, the grid method, touchy subject. The art community is very sensitive about this. The grid method is great for rendering, but it's basically terrible for everything else. It restricts and constrains you from any kind of creative freedom. So if you want to be able to develop your style that reflects your unique voice, then you need to come off the grid method. But all the masters use them, and you shouldn't belittle the people that do use them. If that's what you choose to hear of what I'm saying, that's on you. I used it for 20 years, so I'm speaking from my own personal experience and what I did that gave me complete freedom in developing my style. Number 9, focus on what you're not good at. For 20 years, I only focused on what I was good at, and that was hyperrealism using the grid method. It wasn't until I focused on what I wasn't good at that my work transformed. If you only focus on what you are good at, your work will improve. But if you focus on what you're not good at, your work will evolve. But that does mean though that sometimes you will be creating work that you're not completely satisfied with, because you'll be trying new things that you're not familiar with, and it will be hard and frustrating. But that just means you're learning, because if you already knew it, it would be easy. But it's within those moments that you'll discover those little nuggets of experience and those light bulb moments that will slowly transform your work. Number 10, making drawing a priority. Now, it's unlikely you'll be able to draw all day, every day, because you have other things that you need to attend to. But drawing should be on that priority list. I used to wake up either an hour before or go to bed an hour later. Now, an hour a day may or may not seem like a lot to you, depending on your schedule. But drawing for an hour, you don't really get a lot done, especially in a showcase piece. But at the end of the week, that turns into 7 hours. And now all of a sudden you have 1 and sometimes 2 finished pieces. You don't want to cram in as much as you can, because then you just kind of risk of either burnout or just sucking out the fun of actually drawing. But you want it to be in your lifestyle. You want to make it a commitment. So ask yourself, realistically, how many hours a week can you draw? Think about it, stick to it. And if you're really struggling to find that time, just look at the screen time on your phone. That's what I did, and I was amazed at how much more free time I had. Number 11. Analyze your work. By having that mindful practice and identifying within your drawing why it worked and also why it didn't work is how you gain that extra experience that you can take with you into the next drawing. If a drawing doesn't go to plan, the worst thing that you can do is just dismiss it just because it didn't work, without actually trying to understand why it didn't work. Even if you don't have a lot of experience and you're not quite sure why it didn't work, you can still replay it back in your head with how you approached it, where you started, how you finished, and then do it differently next time. Number 12, consistency. Don't need to say it again. Number 13, understanding the fundamentals. This is the key to unlock basically everything. The better you have an understanding of the fundamentals, the more freedom that you have to explore and experiment with your work. Meaning you can implement certain stylistic choices without worrying about trying to capture the person's likeness. And if you do the prep work beforehand and you know exactly what you want your overall look and style to be in that drawing, you're onto a winner. Number 14, experimenting. Experimenting is experience, experience is learning, learning is knowledge, knowledge is the process, and trusting the process is how you get to your art goals. Number 15, accepting it's a journey. It takes time. It's not an overnight thing, but I know you want to be good at it now, which is why if you do all of these things, that now becomes sooner. Number 16, be specific with what you want to achieve. If you don't know what you want to achieve, then you won't know how to get there. By just saying, I want my work to look better, means nothing. What does better mean to you? What better means to me is different to what it might mean for you. That word is too broad, so you want to be specific. Does that mean more accurate proportions? Does that mean more suggested and implied forms? Does that mean a softer look, a more expressive background? What does a softer portrait look like to you? What does an expressive background look like to you? As soon as you can get real specific with what you want to achieve, you can then start taking the correct steps to get you there rather than just guessing. Number 17. Having an art accountability buddy. Sounds strange. This was something that was so valuable to me. It was me and my friend. He was an oil painter, but every day we shared our ideas. We shared the progression and what we were working with, and we would get each other's perspective, and we basically just created this really creative atmosphere and community just for the both of us. And it would drive us to try and be the best that we could. And it was just amazing having another person's perspective on your work. Thankfully, I've now created a group for my students where not only do they get personalized support and feedback from me, but they also get support from the other students as well. And having that community builds consistency. I'll leave a link in the description to book a call if you want to know more about working with me and how to go from struggling with proportions and limited expression in your style to confidently creating portraits that reflect your voice. I'll see you in the next one.